So Alireza has just mentally checked out of this tournament. He was up until 6 AM last night playing hyperbullet against Daniel Naroditsky. They played an absolute marathon match, 250 games. This is the result on screen now. Now, you don't do this in the middle of a candidates if you're still in the tournament, in the mix, taking it seriously. But he's been struggling, he's dead last, he's not enjoying it, I guess. And he just thought, okay, I want to play some bullet, have some fun. But, you know, you can really see the impact of that on today's game against Ian Nepomniachtchi. Now, Jan's the tournament leader by 1.5 points. There's only 4 rounds to go, so it's going to take quite some doing to actually catch him up. Now, let's see what Alireza did today. It's not pretty, but we'll see the game here. So e4 was played, e5 from Jan, and they went into this Petrov, very much expected. And because it's such a rock-solid opening, very difficult to break down, especially when you know someone's prepped it for a world championship and they've really gone deep. So Alireza tries something a bit different here. After captures on e4 there, instead of the usual stuff of, say, pawn d4, the classical way to play, or you can go for this modern approach of knight c3, try and castle queenside, Alireza went pawn c4, a much rarer move here. The idea is to actually dissuade black from playing pawn to d5 and then kick the knight back and go for a different pawn structure, as we'll see. So here we had knight c6. Now Alireza goes d3, kicks that knight. It comes back to f6. Now he goes pawn d4. And here Jan just develops bishop e7, lets Alireza take the space in the centre, hops into e5 now. And there's a small edge for white here, but it's nothing huge, of course, and black should be doing okay in these variations. Now, if you take this knight on e5, it's not such a big deal for black, because this bishop could actually get very powerful later on these dark squares. You've just opened it up. So instead, Alireza hops into d4 here, and now we already have an actual brand new game according to the Lee Chess database here. So at least he's got it off of mainline theory already after just 9 moves. So castles now from Jan. We had knight to c3 here. And now the bishop came out to g4 already. When you're the side with less space, you want to exchange pieces. So this is a good move. And the main move here is actually just blocks with the bishop. Then you could have an exchange. Okay, game goes on from here. But already Alireza starts trying to mix up the position. He goes pawn f3 here. The bishop drops back. Now he goes bishop e2, keeping pieces on the board. And Jan goes pawn to c6, looking to soften this centre here, open some lines, get some space for his pieces. So Alireza castles, we had takes on d5, pawn recaptures, and now the queen hits a wonderful square, looks down here towards the exposed king. That's the problem with that earlier move, and also eyes this b2 pawn. King to h1 was played, rook a to c8, hits the open file, and this is where Alireza just goes hyperbullet mode. You know, you can play this position slower. There's actually a good move here with pawn to f4. Still an aggressive move, gaining some space. Maybe Alireza didn't like something about this knight c4 line. If you kick that one, it can hop in here. And now this knight is also weak, so that's why black can actually give this piece. Black takes here, maybe bishop back to g1, it was attacked on e3, queen a5. Okay, game goes on. Maybe Alireza didn't think it was enough to get advantage. Maybe he didn't like the look of this d5 pawn weakness, but it does gain some space. White's a bit better here, nothing crazy though. Anyway, for whatever reason, he didn't go f4, he didn't go a4, a kind of positional approach. He went pawn g4 here. Now, obviously, when he plays these g-pawn pushes, sometimes we hail them as absolutely fantastic. They can be great, but in this position, it's just way too much. You're exposing your king very, very badly, and we'll see the tactical problems with that in just a moment. So then we had pawn h6 from Jan, and now here Alireza goes pawn h4, another hyperbullet kind of move. You can see the computer hates it, and it's really just too much here. Because here Jan just goes rook f to e8, saying, okay, play g5, what's the big deal? Alireza does it. We had a captures here. Now you have to go with the pawn. If you go with the bishop, you leave b2 for the queen to take, and then the knight's hanging and everything. It's awful. So the pawn captures, the knight comes into h5, and this is really the problem. There's already a threat to check here. This square is weak. This knight can bounce around and look at it. the rook's ready to come soon, and actually it's black attacking white here, not the other way around. There's just not enough pieces in this attack around the king. So king to g2 was played to cover this square. Rook g1 was best, by the way, but like I said, Alireza's just playing kind of bullet-like moves at this point. Not that he was moving fast, but his whole mentality in this game. So then we had knight to g6, looking to come in here, and you just can't let the knight hit that square. So pawn f4 was played to cover that, but what does black do? Brilliant move by Jan. Do pause if you want to look for it here. The best move for black. So here you can actually just take that pawn with check anyway. And yes, you're giving up an entire piece, but the point is you've dragged that bishop away now. You can take here on b2, and there's just so many problems around the exposed white king. This knight is already about to drop off the board, 2 pieces attacking it, no defenders, so it has to jump into e4 here. And now there is this move of bishop d8, bouncing around here, opening up the rook. But Jan didn't even play this. He went for something a bit more simple, a bit more human. He goes rook to c4 here. The bishop can't take. It's pinned to the king by the queen. So this knight is attacked, and it's very difficult to defend. If you try and move it away, well, then you're losing this one on e4. So that's why the bishop dropped back to defend here. But now you can take this pawn on g5 with the bishop. You open up the rook here. This one's actually overloaded, trying to defend things. And if you take with the knight like this, well, then the rook takes on the e-file and everything's just falling apart for white. So Alireza went rook to b1 here. He kicks the queen, it takes on a2, then he comes back. And now here actually Jan plays a really nice move. Again, do pause if you want to look for it. He plays rook takes on d4 here. Really nice stuff. Now Alireza takes the queen. I'll show that line in a moment. If you take here with the queen, well, then we take on e2 with check. Again, everything's just collapsing here. You know, if you block with the bishop, well, your knight's falling. Your bishop can soon be taken. The knight's hopping in. It's all just absolutely terrible. And if instead of taking with the queen here, you take with the bishop, well, then the queen can take on d5. And yes, black's material down, a lot of material here, a whole rook. But you do have 5 pawns for that rook. And this knight is actually pinned to the king. If you go bishop f3, well, you could take on e4 anyway here. Bishop recaptures, then you can take with check. And the king's just getting absolutely hunted down. The knight's coming in. If it comes back here, you can hit this diagonal with the bishop. You can see all the problems for white. It's just absolute carnage. So we didn't have any of these variations. After rook takes on d4, here we had the queen chopped off. Jan took here, bishop recaptures. Now he takes on e3. And although Alireza can take on d6 now, rook e7, this is still better for black because you've got 3 extra pawns for the exchange here and they're all connected passes. And now it's no good trying to snap a pawn already, or then the bishop can come to b5, hits this rook, also hits the knight. And if you go, say, rook to e1, hitting this bishop so that the rook can't take here just yet, well, then bishop c4 hits this one, threatens to go here, take with check, pick up the knight. Again, it's just not working tactically for Alireza. So he doesn't take on b7 there. Instead, he actually goes bishop to b3. Really, his only hope here was rook to e2, challenge that e-file, stop knight f4 because then you can take it due to the pin down the e-file, you know, if the rook's here. He didn't do that. He went bishop b3, but this is really awful. Because now bishop c5 from Jan, very, very precise, forces the knight to move, it takes on b7, and then he simply drops back here, and he's now opened up this line for his rook. That's the key thing about the whole thing. Now Alireza goes bishop to c4, further covers that e2 square, but Jan invades anyway, rook to e3, and there's just so many problems with these minor pieces also invading the position. So we had king h1 played, trying to step away from some of the threats. The bishop came to h3, hits that rook, it slid across to c1 here, and now bishop f5 comes back, prepares to actually check from here. The bishop came to f1, preparing to block, and here Alireza actually resigned after bishop e4 check. It's just really hopeless. For example, if you block with the bishop, this is mate in 1. If you actually try and move the king instead, let's say to h2, well, then you can take on d5, you hit the rook, you hit the knight, just absolutely collapsing. So Alireza is just finished with this tournament. You know, I think he just needs to get through it now, move on with the year, get back to playing some chess, having some fun. But fair play to Jan. You know, he did what he needed to do today, got the win. And it's really hard to see anyone winning the tournament now. Ding and Fabi are still battling. Ding's got black. He's a pawn up, but it's opposite coloured bishops. Difficult to see if he can win that one. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you want to see another amazing game between these two players, click here.